Hi, my name is Jillian Davis, but most people just call me Jilly. I think the best way for me to communicate who I am and what I'm about is to tell you about two mottos that I live by. The first one is self explanatory: where there's a will, there's a way. If I have the will, I'll find the way. The second one is far more personal and will need a little explanation, but I'll try to keep it brief. I would rather be known as an extraordinary person who happens to be blind than an extraordinary blind person, and there is a difference. So, the explanation: I have a degenerative eye disease called retinitis pigmentosa. It can lead to total blindness. My current situation is that I have some limitations in my central vision, and my peripheral is such that I require a white cane to get around, and have done for the better part of the last decade. However, the thing that I really need to stress right out of the gate is that what I have found through all of the struggles that I have gone through with losing vision is that the greatest challenges that face us are really the greatest gifts. They only come to us in disguise. What seems like a bad thing as it comes into your life can often be the best thing that ever happened to you. And I certainly have found that in my own life and in my own experience. Now, perhaps my positive attitude comes from the house that I was raised in. My dad was a small business owner, but before that, he was a sales guy. And he trained other salesmen. And so a lot of the sales training and books and what have you that he used in his training, he brought into the house. Now, I was an avid reader, so I read all of that material. And it affected me quite profoundly, to the point where, whenever I was about 11 years old, I started babysitting. And when I started my babysitting business, what I did was I actually used those things that I learned from the greats like Zig Ziglar, Dale Carnegie, Napoleon Hill, all the big ones, all the great ones. I applied that knowledge to my babysitting business. And I wound up being so busy that I had to refer out to my friends a lot of the babysitting clients that I could have had. So that was amazing. But, life gets in the way. And I went into retail sales, um, raised a family. And even while I was doing that, I always had sort of a side business, whether it was network marketing or whether I was doing, small service based businesses like babysitting, house cleaning, all of that kind of thing. I did a lot of different things. And I always had my finger on the pulse of what was going on in sales and marketing. To that end, I've kind of followed the trajectory of digital marketing through its entire lifespan. So I'm very familiar with all of that kind of stuff. But in 2017, I had gone through such a hard time with dealing with vision loss that I wound up losing just about everything I owned. But instead of kind of throwing in the towel, I let myself feel sorry for myself for maybe 2 weeks, and then I started plotting my next moves. I started writing about my experience with blindness and started seeing that there were a lot of people in that community that had lost hope and faith in themselves. And so I decided that what I wanted to do was prove to myself, to the world in general, and to the blind community what they're capable of if they just put their mind to it. So, all of that background of all of those great thinkers came into action and it pushed me forward. So, the first thing I did was I decided to travel. I wanted to see the world before I went completely blind. And so I traveled throughout Europe. I went to places where I didn't speak the language, I didn't know the area, and I had to figure it out. And as someone who tends to be shy, I had to learn to push myself to talk to people and ask questions and figure things out. And I did. And I met extraordinary people along the way that taught me so much. I am so grateful for that experience. I can't even express it strongly enough. And I found along the way, people were telling me that I was inspiring to them. These were people that I met on the streets. Just my traveling on my own as a woman, and even more so as a blind woman, people just found that extraordinary. So then in 2019, I decided to sort of conquer a physical challenge that I had wanted to do for a long time. And that was climb the CN Tower in Toronto, Canada. I believe it's the third tallest tower in the world. And I climbed it for charity. And what you do with the CN Tower, it's sort of this timed thing. So there's 1,776 steps that are counted as part of your time. There's actually, inside sports, there's actually more stairs than that. And a lot of people were upset about it. I didn't care because I'd been training on 3,000 stairs a day. So I was good. But anyway, I climbed this tower, 1,776 steps. It is timed. It's kind of an ego thing. I did it in less than an hour. I probably could have done it faster, but because I'd never done it before and I didn't want to embarrass myself, I climbed it a little bit slowly, but I just kept going. And I had my white cane tucked under my arm. And as I was going, and I want to emphasize that people compete for time for this climb. But people, as they were competing for time, were actually stopping and taking that time to tell me how much I inspired them. That for me was the most extraordinary thing that had ever happened to me in my life, because for me it was almost a personal journey just to compete against myself to do something that I thought was great. The fact that I was actually affecting people's lives in the sense that they would actually stop on a timed climb to tell me that I inspired them was amazing. And so whenever I got back to Western Canada, which is where I'm based, I became a certified master life coach. And I'm currently training to be a meditation facilitator. And I'm doing those things because I want to help people be better in their own life. Now, during this time, of course, in 2020, COVID hit. I had big plans for 2020. I still managed to do a couple of public speaking gigs, but a lot of the other things that I had planned had to kind of be put to the side. And that was very disappointing. But I'm still moving along with some of those plans. But something that has become very clear to me is that when we come out of this pandemic, there's a lot of healing that's going to be needed. And there's a lot of people that are going to have to find new ways of doing things. So the digital economy, as it's been progressing, was going at a fairly slow pace. And I think that what has happened because of this pandemic has sped everything up. Now, I know that Shopify actually had started closing down its offices before the pandemic hit, but those offices are never going to be opened again. Not because those people aren't employed, but because they're employed at home. They don't need the offices. That's just extra overhead at this point. I also know that in the insurance industry, which is something that I've also worked in, that a lot of those people were starting to work from home as well. I have a lot of friends still in the industry, and that's what's happened to them. And they don't think they're ever going to go back to the office. A lot of those office spaces have been getting slowly but surely closed down. So I think that's what's going to be the future. It was going in that way anyway, but I think it's going to continue. Any kind of business that, where people worked in a cubicle, they're going to be working from home from now on. I think there's going to be a lot more, if you have to have a meeting, you'll rent an office space and you'll go have that meeting at the office space. So it's going to be more of those kinds of things, more remote work, more digital nomad kind of things. I've been doing it for a number of years now as a writer, and I think that's going to continue, and it's going to be even more so. If you don't actually have to physically do a job in person, then you're going to be working from home. I think education is going in the same direction. It's been going that way for a number of years. I've seen more and more, not so much I mean, there's a lot of online education that's kind of quick courses that people can take. But there's also things like Udemy, Teachable, all these different other, I think Linda is another one. There's a number of them that are starting to pop up, but universities are also going online. Many of them, there's actual universities that have been started as online offerings so that people can get significant education online. I think Entre can be one of those big things that are specifically talking about entrepreneurship. But the thing that I like about Entre, and that's something that I have to kind of put in here, and why I think this is such a great fit for both myself and for Entre, is that I'm just finishing up a book that I'm writing about politics, Western Canadian politics. It's all good. Um, and I was planning, once I had finished that book and get it out there, do the marketing plan and everything for it, what I was planning on doing was starting a digital marketing company, because I've been doing that kind of work for micropreneurs for a while, mostly in exchange for whatever services they provide. So, for example, one of them is a yoga and hiking retreat, which I still have to collect on because it's in North Wales and I can't get there because of COVID. But anyway, um, so whenever I was planning this out and kind of coming up with what I was going to do, Entre kind of came across my path, and I believe everything happens for a reason. The thing that I really like about Entre is that there is that holistic approach. I would like to be a part of that. I mean, I'm going to do the digital agency anyway. I will probably get into affiliate marketing as well. There's a bunch of different things. I'll probably start teaching. There's a lot of people that want me to teach them how to make money as a writer. Even established writers, believe it or not, are asking me how I make money as a writer because they don't know how. With the way things are going now, it's a whole different world. And so I have a lot of these skills to teach and to show people, and people want me to do that. And I think Entre kind of saves me a lot of time because it's a lot of stuff that I don't have to set up myself. So I would love to come and work for Entre, and I think I could benefit the company in huge ways. For starters, having come through a huge barrier and seeing it as the gift that it is, I can cut through a lot of people's crap, because I know a lot of people make excuses for themselves because of those barriers. But I'm a perfect example of how it doesn't have to be unless you let it be. And I firmly believe in that. That is something that I live by. I will not allow people to count themselves short just because of something they're going through right now. It doesn't have to be the end of the world, and it doesn't have to completely ruin their lives. They have to embrace the future, and they have to embrace whatever it is that has been thrown at them, because they will find coming through it is actually what makes them stronger and what makes them a better person. And I am the perfect example of that, and I can explain that to anybody who wants to listen. So those are the things that I bring to the table. I think that's why Entre would very much benefit from having me on board. I'm very grateful that you've listened to this whole video. I'm sure it's been a little bit rambling, but I'm very passionate about serving people and showing them the other side of whatever challenge or trial they're going through. And so I hope that you will consider me as a sales advisor. And I leave this with you. You can, of course, reach out to me. My email is Jill Davis, GILLDAVIS .sm@gmail.com. And my phone number is 1-416-991-3551. I hope to hear from you soon.